let it shine, let it shine all the time. This morning I will say, come on now. This morning I will say, come on, I hear you now. I'm gonna let it shine. This morning I will say, I'm gonna let it shine. This morning I will say, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine all the time. That's what come on, that's word, that's school, that's play. Oh yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. That's word, that's school, that's play. Make your light shine. Come on. I'm gonna let it shine. There you go. That word, that's school, that's play. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine all the time. Even in my home, even in my home, I'm gonna let it shine. Let the light of God shine in your home. In my home, I'm gonna let it shine. Even in my home, even in my home, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine all the time. Let it shine, 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 let it shine. Let the light shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine all the time. Is Children of the Sun in that book? You don't know. All right, but y'all know. Okay. Children of the Sun.
Should be in the
Oh, we
What's
got.
the
I don't
name?
know what page
Huh?
it is.
Children of
Children of the Sun? Is it in there? It's in there. It's gotta be in there.
It's on page 24.
Yeah, I can't remember the page number, but
It's on
Children of the Sun.
Page 24.
Page 20 what?
And this one is 21.
Page 24. Huh?
Two different books. 21 in this one.
Oh, okay. Oh.
yeah.
All right.
And of course we have the writer of that song, right?
Oh.
Mr. Michael Lissy. He penned that back in 1984. Still singing
Just looking at that. 1984, he wrote this song right here.
Yes.
And he's here today.
All right, we are.
We are children. You guys gotta sing with us now. Come on.
We got you back.
We are children of the sun.
In every task we shall overcome. We were first upon the earth. We'll be the last, that's the holy word. One more time, chorus. We are children of the sun. In every task we shall overcome. We were first upon the earth. We'll be the last, that's the holy word. We were first to look at life and ask the question why. We were first to hear and heed the answers of the Most High. We were first to know the truth of reciprocity. We were first to build a world of love and unity. We are children of the sun. plan to resurrect the hearts and minds and build a mighty plan to build foundation for the people of the way. This work will surely test the genius of the race. We are children of the sun. In every task we shall overcome. We were first upon the earth. We'll be the last, that's the holy word. We are children of the sun. In every task we shall overcome. We were first upon the earth. We'll be the last, that's the holy word. We'll be the last, that's the holy word. We'll be the last, we'll be the last, that's the holy word. We'll be the last, we'll be the last, that's the holy word.
Y'all sound real good.
Yeah. Now we got it. So, all right, we got the word. We ready? So, as those who know Makalisi, and almost everybody here knows Makalisi. If you don't know Makalisi, you better get to know Makalisi. And as the brother right there commented, he looked in 1984. He wrote the "We Are Children of the Sun." And Makalisi, as you know, he will write a song, or he's always writing songs, and he has a song for every occasion. Like they think Hallmark got a car for every occasion. Makalisi got a song for every occasion. If you give him 15 minutes in that flute, he will write a song. We came into rehearsal, and I was like, Makalisi, you got a song? Bam!
And beautiful
And
song.
beautiful, oh man.
Wonderful content.
Just
you know.
just profound, just profound words. So he gave us a song, and we are looking the song up. Is that it? It's so small. I can't even see that. Oh, small. You know, we need to outlaw that, we call it that little 10-point font. I'll be like this. I'm going to look at hers is written like 12 to 14 to help me out. So. Okay. I'm yours. Okay.
Just give all thanks and praises to the Most High. Give thanks and praises
shit.
to your ancestors for the teachings of our sacred way, for things for us to reflect on. And let the music of the universe call us and endeavor to be in harmony with it. And cause us some words to come from our teeth, tongue, and lips.
Yes.
Let them come. Ashe.
Ashe.
So, you were here last week, you heard us do this song. And I did it by myself, but now, whoa, got some. Ashe. If we walk each day the sacred way, we will reach the place we long to be. The place of truth and love, peace and harmony, the place to live eternally. Let's walk in faith, light and dignity. Let's walk in hope, balance and harmony. Let's walk in peace, joy and prosperity. Let's walk in love, beauty and unity. Let's walk in mind, for the greatest good. Let's walk in truth, like we should. Let's walk in trust and reciprocity. Let's walk that walk diligently. Let's walk each day in deep knowledge. My people, know thyself. Self-knowledge is not That power belongs with no one else. Let's walk in faith, light in divinity. Let's walk in hope, balance, and harmony. Let's walk in peace, joy, and prosperity. Let's walk in love, beauty, and unity. Let's walk in God, for the greatest good. Let's walk in truth, like we should. Let's walk in trust, reciprocity. Let's walk that walk diligently. Let's do all we can, every way we can, to make life more beautiful. Here in this land and in our motherland and all over the world. Let's walk in faith, light, and divinity. Let's walk in hope, balance, and harmony. Let's walk in peace, joy, and prosperity. Let's walk in love, beauty, and unity. Let's walk in mind, for there is good. Let's walk in truth, like we should. Let's walk in trust and reciprocity. Let's walk that walk diligently. Let's walk each day and talk each day and rejoice each day the sacred way. Let's walk that walk and talk that talk and rejoice each day the sacred way. Let's rise and shine, live and give, care and share the sacred way. Let's walk each day and talk each day and rejoice each day the sacred way. The sacred African way, 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 the way, the way, the way, the way, the way.
All right, here, family. I'm doing a circle tribute today, and it's a tribute I've been meaning to do for about 2 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, let me back up because I need to set the conditioning right.
Yeah.
I have not been working on it for 2 years.
Right.
That's a little different. Yeah. But as you know, so we cover the classics at the school, you know, Maya Angelou and Richard Wright and some other folks. And there are some books I think that if you are a conscious black person, you feel like you should have read. And sometimes, it may not be your experience, but my experience at times, and there are books that I know are classic works of literature that I believe I have read, but I really have not. Maybe I read an excerpt, I sat in the class once, oh yeah, I read that book, you know, I'm going to read it, but I never actually did. I Know What the Caged Bird Sings is one of those books for me. And it was a book I felt like, I was in college, I took a class African American literature, I felt like I probably have read that book, so I give myself credit for it. I put a check in my box. And so a few years back, I was looking at some work to share with students here, my 8th graders, and I thought, I should take a look at Maya Angelou's I Know What the Caged Bird Sings. So I picked the book up, started reading, and I realized I have never read this book. I mean, I assumed I had, you know, but in fact, I didn't realize it was in fact Maya Angelou's autobiography. Didn't know that either.
Okay.
And so as I'm reading it, there are a lot of things you get from any work that you read.
Right.
And this tribute is actually about the person who just stunned me. They're these uncommon heroes who are just regular folk, but they're quite heroic in what they do.
Wow.
And that person is Maya Angelou's grandmother, who just came across, for those, I'm sure you all have actually read the book, you have real check boxes. So it'll be a reminder for you guys, but for the rest of us, it's interesting and new. Maya Angelou was not born Maya. Her birth name was Marguerite. She was, she had a brother named Bailey. And when they were young, probably 7 or 6 years old or so, their parents divorced, and which was coming for the day for many reasons. They were sent to live with their grandmother, which is Miss Henderson, and she lived in Stamps, Arkansas. And it was very common. My wife, in fact, was raised by her grandmother. Some similar circumstances. People grow up in the South, they want to move to the Midwest, to Detroit, Chicago, come to LA, and pursue their dreams. And it's usually best for the kids to stay where it's stable and safe at home with their grandmother. And then the parents, make a way and establish, and they send for the kids. And so that was kind of the setting for them. Although she in fact stayed with grandmother for much longer than that. It struck me that she was just an incredible woman. She was in Stamps, Arkansas, small area. Of course, it's a black town. There's a white portion of town, separated by railroad tracks. Common stuff. She was the wealthiest woman in Stamps, Arkansas, in the black community.
Wow.
Which is saying a lot, but at the same time, it's not saying very much. But still, it's still something. She reminded me of a couple of my grandmothers, and that she was a large woman. My paternal grandmother, when I saw her, I fashioned myself to be somewhat of an athlete. And when I met her, I thought, man, I must be like the shortest dude. It's like she was like 6'2". She wasn't quite 6'2", but she was taller than me. Our mother in Mississippi, she's probably about 5'11", got forms like this. So when I read about her, I think about my own great and grandparents. She was a big woman. They said she was pretty when she was young and still was very pretty. But when Maya Angelou saw her, it wasn't her beauty that struck her. It was her size and her physicality. She said she could grab her by her head and wrap both her ears in one hand. She just massive hand. She was a working person. She had 3 husbands. She was a pillar of her community. She was, in fact, a legend in some respects because once it was a white man who had done something and he was running from the law and he happened to run across her. They took care to hit him, but he got arrested, caught. And then the judge, when they were trying this person's case, he called for Miss Henderson. And the entire court just erupted in laughter. He wasn't from the area. He was like one of those visiting judges. And everybody laughing. And he looked up, and here comes Miss Henderson. He had invariably called a black woman by the title of Mrs., and that was very funny to everybody. But the black folks took very pride in the fact that, yeah, she was called Mrs. by the white folks, right? So that was a bit of a legend. She said, Maya writes that she had a voice. Her voice was soft only because she chose to make it that way. I'm going to share a couple of excerpts with you. One of those was, so she says in church, when she was called upon to sing, so she was a humble person, but she had to work at being humble. It wasn't a natural humility. Because she was just so great. In church, when she was called upon to sing, she seemed to pull out plugs from behind her jaws, and the huge, almost rough sound would pour over the listeners and throb in the air. Each Sunday, after she had taken her seat, the minister would announce, every Sunday, we will now be led in a hymn by Sister Henderson. And each Sunday, she looked up with amazement at the preacher and asked silently, oh, me? After a second of assuming herself that she indeed was being called upon, she laid down her handbag and slowly folded her handkerchief. This was placed neatly on top of the purse. Then she leaned on the bench in front and pushed herself to a standing position. And then she opened her mouth and the song jumped out as if it had only been waiting for the right time to make an appearance. Week after week and year after year, the performance never changed. Yet I don't remember anyone's ever remarking her sincerity or readiness to sing. She played the role of matriarch. She was, after I mentioned before, her oldest son had divorced and she took in Maya. Later on, when Maya was older, she went to San Francisco and actually helped her out there. She was very confident. She learned to navigate the rules and protocols of the South without losing her dignity. She was an owner of a store, and she also owned property behind the store, not like a few blocks. She owned like maybe 100 acres. And she had property, she had buildings on that acreage, and she rented out to black folks and white folks, which was odd because you have to acquiesce to white folks, but they're renting your property. And so frequently they had these folks in the neighborhood who would come, they'd go to the store and buy things. One scene that Ma describes was some young white girls were coming towards the store, and her grandmother was standing on the porch. And there was always this little tension between Maya Angelou, her grandmother, and these white young girls in the neighborhood, because they were so disrespectful. You know, when you think of just poor white trash, that's what they were. They would just, and they would come in the store, they'd make a rush, they would just ignore convention of respect for elders, and it just drove Maya crazy. And she wanted, when she saw these kids coming, she wanted her mother, her grandmother, to go in the house and let her deal with them, because she felt so ashamed and embarrassed for her grandmother, they were so disrespectful. And so as they see these folks coming, she's urging her grandmother to go inside, I'll take care of them. The grandmother says, don't worry about it. And they come to the yard, they don't go into the store, they stand on the outside, and they start mocking her and teasing her, the grandmother. They're making jokes and cracks and just acting just like buffoons. And Maya is reduced to tears. I mean, she has visions of grabbing a shotgun and going to blow. And she was serious. She was like, I would get the shotgun if I could pick it up and carry it. And her grandmother sends her to inside, and she stands on a porch, and she's just being taunted, and she just starts hymning, hymning some spiritual, and she stands erect, and she just ignores them like they're not even there. And Maya sees her grandmother transforming herself on the porch to go to someplace else, and so you can see in her mind, just as a very spiritual person, that she moved someplace else, that she just ignored them. So she was that kind of deeply spiritual person. I like her. She had parenting philosophy, and as you read a person, you kind of get their philosophy. Maya wrote that she believed that thou shalt not be dirty, and thou shalt not be impotent, were the two commandments of grandmother Henderson upon which hung their total salvation. Be respectful, always be clean. It didn't matter the weather; it could be 20 degrees below. In the wintertime, they had to go every single night outside in the woods and scrub up deeply and tight, scrubbing every part of their body. This is old school, a bathtub, a basin, because it wasn't a tub, right? And she would check them at night. Their shoes or feet were dirty. They had to go outside and go do it again. She was a business person, as I said earlier, that she started off selling, kind of like pot pies almost. She sold them to folks who work in the cotton fields and folks who work at the local sawmill. And this is on different parts of the town. And so she'd wake up around 4 o'clock in the morning, prepare this food, and she would work her way between about a 5 or 10 mile distance, walking back and forth, selling to both sides. Over time, she saved up enough money to actually create her own store and became the only store in the black part of Stamps, Arkansas. And so she built that store up. It was the centerpiece of the entire community. Each morning when folks went out to go pick cotton, they would go to her store first. They would buy lunch there. They would hop in the trucks, be sent to the cotton fields. When they got done, they'd come back, they'd stop off at her place, buy some more things, or leave their cotton sacks right there. When Joe Louis fought, the fight was witnessed at her store. They had the radio there. Pepsi, I think it was not Pepsi Cola, it was what was the first cola of the day? It was RC Cola. RC Cola. And so it was kind of like she had the version of Starbucks and also kind of the local, sports bar, if you will. It was all wrapped up right there. And so during the Great Depression, when things hit really hard for folks, folks were on relief. They would get powdered milk and powdered eggs from the local welfare. Their family was never on welfare. But unfortunately, folks in the neighborhood for whom she depended upon for her livelihood, they couldn't afford items at the store. And so in order to maintain her business, she then created an exchange program that folks would exchange their powdered milk and powdered eggs for store credit towards buying something there. And so folks would go downtown, grab their powdered eggs, powdered milk, come back to the store, drop it off there, get a credit, and be able to purchase on credit. And during that time period, their family, as Maya Angelou, her brother, and her grandmother, they ate the powdered eggs and powdered milk. Wow. And so Maya described that other folks ate, good food, but they ate powdered milk because she was trying to keep her store going. So she was also a great business person. On race relations, she didn't believe white folks could be persuaded to change. And she never spoke harshly of them. However, she was very much like Booker T. Washington. Her path of expedience did alter her ability to speak directly when necessary. At one period, Maya Angelou had this vicious toothache. I mean, she had a couple of teeth that were just, she was absolutely in pain for just weeks. And their normal remedy was, some of you know this, you tie it, swing around the tooth, put on the door, and smack the door. thank goodness for dentists today now. Or they'd have some kind of concoction and just try to ease their pain a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Old school orgy, I don't like to match. But none of that worked. So, I mean, she was just in agony. So she had to, and they couldn't go to the black dentist because he was about 25 miles away. And that's like going to LA. That's like, you know, they get on a Greyhound bus. They couldn't afford the bus ride, couldn't afford Pine Bluff. And so she told, Mama Henderson told Maya Angelou to say, we're going to leave. We're going to go see the dentist. And so she was, oh, thank goodness, because her whole head was just throbbing with pain for days. And they ended up going to the white dentist. And they get there. And Maya's like shocked, like, we're going to the white dentist. And she goes to the white dentist and she, you know, explains to the white dentist that her daughter is in great pain. And he's like, I hear you, but I don't know why you're sitting here talking to me. She says to the dentist, she said, Dennis Lincoln, it's my grandbaby here. She got 2 right teeth that's giving her a fit. And he made no, he's just looking at her like, again, why are you telling me this? So she goes on, she says, she had this toothache for near 4 days now. And today I said, young lady, you're going to the dentist. And he finally says to her, Annie, that's her first name. Annie, yes sir, Dennis Lincoln. Annie, you know, I don't treat niggas. I don't treat colored people. I know, Dennis Lincoln, she says, but this here is just my little grandbaby, and she ain't gonna be no trouble to you. Annie, he cuts her off. Everybody has a policy. In this world, you have to have a policy. Now, my policy is, I don't treat colored people. She stands there for a second. She says, seems like to me, Dennis Lincoln, you might look after her. She ain't nothing but a little mite, and seems like maybe you owe me a favor or two. This is a Booker T in her. He read it a little bit. Favor, no favor, the money has all been repaid. So there's a hint here of something that's not just said. He says, the money has all been repaid to you, and that's the end of it. Sorry, Annie. He says, I'm sorry, and he goes in and closes the door. And then she goes on to say, he says, it's been paid, and raising your voice won't make me change my mind. My policy, he let go of the door and sat near Mom, but the 3 of us were sitting next to each other. He says, Annie, my policy is, I'd rather stick my hand in a dog's mouth than in a nigger's mouth. So she tells Maya, go to the side, I'll be back. And she goes inside, and she comes back out after about maybe a half hour or so. And Maya Angelou has no idea what happened. All she knows is they then proceed to the bus stop. They hop on the bus, and they then take the bus into, I think it was Pine Bluff, to go see the black dentist, and she's taken care of. And they come back home, get a little ice cream, and then later on she finds out what happened. And then apparently that during the Depression, she loaned money to many people, including white business persons. In fact, he was in threat of losing his operation. He turned to her, this white man turned to her to go get a loan to keep his business afloat, and she loaned him money. But given the good Christian person she was, she didn't charge him any interest. It's a 0% interest loan. So that's why she said, I think that you owe me something, a little favor. And so after he got kind of snippy with her, she went inside his practice, stopped him and said, you know what? I think now you need to pay me some interest. That wasn't part of our deal. It's part of our deal now.
Thank you.
Since she don't get like this. So she goes on to say, in her words, she says, Dennis Lincoln got right uppity, said he'd rather put his hand in a dog's mouth, and when I reminded him of the favor, he brushed it off like a piece of lint. Well, I sent sister downstairs and went inside. I had never been in his office before, but I found the door to where he takes out teeth, and him and the nurse was in there thick as thieves. I just stood there until he caught sight of me. He jumped like he was sitting on a pin. He said, Annie, I done told you I ain't gonna mess around in no nigga's mouth. I said, somebody got to do it then. And he said, take her to Texarkana, to the colored dentist. And that's when I said, if you paid me my money, I could afford to take her. He said, it's all been paid. I told him everything, but the interest has been paid. He said, 'twant no interest. I said, 'tis now. I'll take $10 of payment in full. He says he told that little snippety nurse of his to give me $10 and make me sign a paid in full receipt. She gave it to me and I signed the papers. Even though by right he was paid up before, I figured he gonna be that kind of nasty, he gonna have to pay for it. So this tribute is dedicated to Miss Annie Henderson, remind us that we had uncommon heroes in our community who stood up to white folks and showed us what true integrity and spiritual righteousness looks like.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. One thing about Jack, he was a great historical tribute, and some of my home peoples, Arkansas. It was. Don't get your tears now. I like that. So, what kind of math were you doing? You know. So we're gonna get ready for a second part, a great presentation that Sister Mona began about a month ago, I guess. And as she comes, I wanted you just to welcome her. She's been a committed member of Jose. She's very much interested in the history of our folks, and we're all looking forward to part 2 of her presentation right now. So please welcome Sister Mona.
Strength help. Okay. And Sister Bisola is going to help me again this time. Go this way. Okay. So last month's presentation, we focused on 4 of the 8 regions that was visited. So today, I'm going to talk mostly historic sites in the other 4 regions. And the 4 regions today will be the northern, upper eastern, Ashanti, and central regions. So we're going to look at those regions today. So where we left off, we were leaving the Brong-Ahafo region, heading north. Okay, so we're heading north with a plan to visit the Salaga Slave Market and the Mole National Park. So we never got to either of those 2 destinations. So as we were driving along, we saw a road sign that said Sakpuli Slave Site, 15.6 kilometers ahead. So we just, since we had the ability to do what we needed to do, we just followed that sign. And so near a large baobab tree was a sign that read, "The Slave Market. Established during the 17th century, the Sakpuli slave market drew merchants and traders from all over the Dagbon kingdom. The slave market was conducted under this baobab tree, where slaves were set and shackled to its roots to be sold. At the time, cowries were used as a medium of exchange, and 2 dugout holes evident at the tree base were used as a standard of measure." So I have a picture here that we took of the 2 dugout holes that the cowries were placed in when the slavers made their determination of our ancestors' work. So I want to talk a little bit about the baobab tree, which is central to the lives of the people. It is in the center of the village where community meetings are held under its shade. Rituals are performed under the tree to evoke specific ancestral powers. All parts of the tree, they use all parts of it. The seeds from its fruit are used to fry and ground into a powder that they cook and eat. The leaves are soup ingredients. It's said that the roots of the bark of the tree has healing powers. So we have the opportunity to sit with the village Yana and the village leaders who shared documents that spoke of Sakpuli's history. It was a major slave trade route in the 1600s through 1800s, and in the mid-1800s, it was one of the 4 most important settlements in the Dagbon Kingdom, along with Sabalugu, Karaga, and Yendi. The documents also said that the slave market stakeholders played a role that entrenched and sustained the slave market. It named the stakeholders as chiefs with private armies, alien slave raiders, who were in fact the slave merchants, wealthy farmers, and what they called in the document the overlords of the kingdom, who were the Yanas. And so as we moved along, we saw a number of old wells which had been privately owned by the slavers to provide water that was only used by the enslaved. And at Sakpuli, they produced shea butter. And I'm going to pass this around. That I got there. So they produce shea butter. So we're going to go to the cool.
So when they took us into the chemical electric, he showed it to me.
So we were able to watch the production process from the women pounding the nuts on the ground, separating the nut meat from the shells, running the nut meat through a machine to produce a fine powder, and then mixing the powder with water to create the final product, which is shea butter. So that jar that's going around the room contains shea butter from the village when we were visiting it. It's a part of what you see right there. That's part of what you see right there in that slide with the gourd next to the baby. So that was the shea butter experience. So, but on the next slide, I wanted to show some of the adorable Sakpuli village children. Now, as we exited Sakpuli, a sign said, "Never again, slavery is evil." So we next moved on to stop in the city of Tamale, where we viewed its sports stadium. So according to Ghana's 2010 census, this city, Tamale, is the fastest growing city in West Africa. And it's assumed that it must be due to the fact that they held the 2008 African Cup of Nations tournament in Ghana. And Tamale was one of 4 cities that hosted the event. So they did a lot of infrastructure improvements leading up to the event, and afterwards they did more improvements, particularly to the road system. And the population increase may also be due to the city's central location. It serves as like a hub for all administrative and commercial activities in the northern region of Ghana. So we next moved further north. We continued to move north. And we went to the upper eastern region, where we visited the town of Paga, which borders Burkina Faso. And then we headed to the Zinga Sacred Crocodile Ponds. And it said that the crocodiles hold the souls of the village's ancestors. They're seen as messengers of a local deity and guardians of the town, and are protected by the town's governing body. It's reported that no one gets harmed by the crocs, and the children swim in the ponds, and the townspeople wash clothes next to them. Although that is said, that this is what happens with the crocs, and that they're tame and no one gets harmed by them. Before we were allowed to approach them, they had to be fed.
Tell me that nobody will be there. You'll be stuck somewhere in the
We'll see that. Okay.
Stay here? Okay. chewing. I was going
It was in all, it was it.
And then belch. Granted, you know, they were telling us all this. I'm going, okay, why do we have to see? Why does this have to happen first? So we went on and did it. So okay.
I see you toward the back end.
Yes. Yeah. It was ready to go. Okay, so we moved on from Zinga and we traveled to the crossing border of Burkina Faso. And as we readied ourselves to take the trip down to the Ashanti region, and we took on different sites along the way. And, you know, it included partaking in the wares of roadside vendors, because that's what happens in a lot of African countries. All the sale is on the roadside, in the middle of fast traffic. And then we also witnessed, and she was so beautiful, this young lady. Okay. She was a beautiful girl. Okay. So we also witnessed the influences of African American culture, and with this slide. And Basola was recognizing the young lady in the center as a singer. I think you said
No, I think she's an actress.
an actress. So they put Ludacris and Bow Wow with the Ghanaian actress.
I think she's maybe African American.
African American. I just don't recognize her. Okay. Okay, so we are now moving into the Ashanti region, and I'm sure you all know the history of the Ashanti Empire, of the lineage of the Akan people, the resistors of European colonization, and span many of the regions of Ghana, they do. Of their highly disciplined and strategically powerful militaristic warriors. That's who those guys were. And also of sister warrior Nana Ya Asanawa, who led the 1900 revolt against the British.
Is that,
And I'm
is
sorry.
that her in the middle?
That is her. That's her in the center. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then of the golden stool, which symbolized Asante unity and spirit. This kingdom was so great that even today, the Ashanti monarchy continues as a constitutionally protected sub-nation state and traditional state within Ghana. So it's like a state within a state. That's how powerful they were and still are. So while in Ashanti land, we visited Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi. And the university was established in 1952. Since then, it has undergone changes. So in 2005, it was condensed into 6 colleges with many underlying departments. The school also has a university hospital. Now, this past January, Ghana announced that Nkrumah's birthplace in Ghana's western region will have its first university, the Institute of Science and Humanities. So that's, brand new. So we next visited the Bonwire village where kente cloth is woven. So I was able to purchase an older piece of kente cloth, and I also have a more recent piece I want to pass around. Together. So when weavers learn the cloth making skills by mastering the kente cloth looms very early in childhood, the knowledge and skills of the craft is passed down through generations so that won't be lost. So we stopped next at the Manhia Palace Museum. And I think it was due to the need to preserve the artifacts, we were not allowed to take any photographs there in the museum. But its contents provides good insight into the culture, traditions, and history of the Asante Kingdom. So what it displayed in there were artifacts like an ancient sketch map of the Asante Empire, some of the original furnishings used by the kings. They had war amulets, some life-size statues of the kings and queens, and some of the guns used by Nana Ya Asanowe. So from there we moved on to the central region. And I saw that many of the hotels in Ghana had beautiful art and woodwork. So in Elmina's Coconut Grove Beach Resort, I saw this beautifully carved drum and thought that our drummers, and some of them are here, would like to see it. So there's a picture of that drum.
You didn't bring it back.
I couldn't bring it back.
She would if she could.
I sure would have. They also had a mask similar in design to the ones I passed around at last month's presentation. And so I wanted to show that because I wanted to show that in that region, I don't know if that design is just in that region or in other regions, but in that region, for sure, that design was everywhere. So along the beach, there was the Akumapa village where they offered drumming, singing, and dancing classes, but we were not there long enough to take any of them because we were on the move. So we next moved on to the Elmina Castle dungeon. And the coastline of West Africa is dotted with some 66 slave trading posts, and 32 of them were built on the coast of today's Ghana. So the Elmina dungeon is one of those 32. It's been recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. But by the 18th century, 30,000 enslaved Africans passed through Elmina's door of no return each year.
By when?
The 18th century. Now our guide noted to us that beyond capacity, it housed over 600 men and 400 women at any given time. And they took us through a couple of other doors that I want to tell you about. One door led to a condemned prisoner's holding cell, and it housed the slaver soldiers who had done something that displeased, the ones that were in command. The other one was called the death cell, and it was reserved for African leaders of uprisings. So they reserved that cell for our warriors. Now then, the European elite who ran the dungeon were housed on its upper levels. There were staircases that led directly from the governor's chambers to the enslaved women's dungeons below. This plaque hangs on a dungeon entryway, and it says, "In everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors, those who died rest in peace. May those who return find their roots. May humanity never again perpetuate such injustice against humanity. We the living vow to uphold this." I saw this very similar to the never again sign we saw while exiting the village of Sakpuli that we saw just a little bit before. So, still in that region, we move on to this is an Atlantic Ocean outlet seen from above the dungeons, leading to the beginning of the transatlantic journey. Now the fishing harbor would be next, and it was very busy, very colorful, very lively place. And then, when you look at the slide, you can see a combination of work and play. There's another one where the kids are doing football. And then we have a video clip so that you get a really idea of what's going on. a fishing, it's a fishing park. So,
It's like a free market.
yeah, like a market. You know, we move, they have ships moving in, ships moving out, it's just busy. And then we next visited One Africa Beach Resort, which is in its 24th year of operation. And it's owned and operated by an African from America, her name, Amicus. Amongst other things, she is a published author and she works on Ghanaian projects and activities. On YouTube, you can see her being interviewed in 2010 by CNN's Anderson Cooper. If you get a chance, you might want to go back and find that. She and her family are among the over 5,000 estimated African expatriates from America that are living now in Ghana. So in the main house of One Africa is a museum of African culture where you see things like art, work, and historical photographs. It's a really beautiful property with big round huts, which visitors sleep to the sound of the ocean waves. Has a gorgeous coastline and rock formations with an awesome, awesome meditative atmosphere. And I also did a 28-minute interview with her son, Brother Shabazz, where he shares his perspective on living in Ghana and issues like being an African-American repatriate, reclaiming Africa, and as a trained pharmacist, his interest in African herbs. We may have the opportunity to visit it, to view it, maybe one day in the future. And I think, Bobby Gregg saw that,
That's good.
So our next stop was Cape Coast, the Castle Dungeon area. And due to some time constraints, we didn't tour the dungeon, and it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Instead, we visited the Ebenezer Nursery School, located in the Cape Coast Hills. It's a school of orphan children that was started by a Protestant group years ago who abandoned it. So for years it's been run by this conscientious Ghanaian woman. She continued the school to ensure that the children were cared for and educated. And we have a clip of it. Okay, so that school is run on donations and it's in need of financial support, like a lot of the places there. Its main supporters are two young men who attended the school as children. After leaving the school, they made a commitment to support it and others like it by starting the We Shall Love Foundation, and you see there what their goal and mission. So for Ebenezer School, they are raising funds to build a classroom and library. And perhaps Jose can support the effort with a donation, and our sister Andrea could take it back when she returns there in the summer.
Did we just see her?
Last
Yeah, I
time.
think
but
that
not-
That's the previous one.
I think she's
Oh,
over there.
I'm sorry, yes. She's up in the right-hand corner in the blue. I'm sorry, thank you. I didn't even remember it was there. Thank you. So while we were in Ghana, they were having the 21st anniversary of Panafest celebration. So if there's someone who doesn't know about Panafest, it's a cultural event held in Ghana every 2 years for Africans. So the idea of the festival is to promote and enhance unity, Pan-Africanism, and the development of the continent of Africa. And the 2013 theme was Reuniting the African Family, Pan-Africanism, and the African Renaissance. So our Ghanaian journey ended with that night, with Reverential Night, which is part of Panafest celebration. And let me pass around the program from that. It's an International Day of Remembrance, which honors our ancestors who were the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. So the night began with a candlelight procession through the main streets of Cape Coast to reenact the march that those enslaved took on their way to the dungeon. One very moving moment during the reenactment was the lighting of all candles from one single bonfire flame. And it, it kind of, provided like a feeling of connectedness for, for all the participants. It was like an unbroken circle, which was similar to the feeling, that we have with our circle prayer.
Yes.
Okay. So the procession ended at the dungeon doors where the leaders asked the ancestors for permission to enter the dungeon. They asked for permission. And once inside, they took 5 reeds down. This was one of the leaders of the event. And then we have one more slide, video clip. These are all young ladies. And so the celebration ended with the midnight proclamation of Ghana's Emancipation Day. And we headed home the next morning.
This is really interesting. The program is making its way around, and it's showing that one of the songs they sing is "Lift Every Voice."
Yes, they did.
Do you have any idea how that influence came?
I believe that influence was through Amicus. I believe that influence was probably through her because she was very involved with this.
And they also sing Bob Marley's Redemption Song.
Yeah.
And they had a ceremony where they're lighting 7 candles. There were 7 aspects of that trek into slavery.
Excellent.
Beautiful job.
All right, I want to thank Sister Mona again as outstanding. Set a whole standard for this kind of presentation. Thank you. One more time. Thank you so much. All right. I think we are, let's see, Litany of Sacrifice is where we are. What is it?
This is the time in the Worcester Community Service known as the Litany of Sacrifice. And it offers an opportunity for us to return a portion of that which we have received for the week to support our work here in our school. Sister Mona is moving amongst you with the offering envelopes. And Sister Connie and Sister Princess Aaliyah are attending the altar. And while you prepare your sacrifices, this morning's inspirational reading comes from the Hosea, page number 52 from the book of Keti. Passage number 8. And the passage reads, well cared for. And Sister Mona also has an assistant, a beautiful young sister.
Sister Jada.
Sister Jada. Yeah, good things. So good seeing young people with their fresh faces and their eyes of innocence coming through and growing up in the Bose community, hopefully absorbing that which we are attempting to share. We're moving on to passage number 8 in the Hosea, page number 52 from the book of Keti. Keti writes, well cared for is humankind who are the flocks of God. He made the sky and earth for their sake. He destroyed the dangers of the water. He gave the breath of life for their noses. They are in his image and came from his body. He shines in the sky for their sake. He made plants for them and cattle, fish and fowl to nourish them. He has killed his enemies and reduced his children when they conspire to rebel against him. He makes daylight for their sakes, and he sails around in his sacred boat so that he can see them. He has built his shrine around them, and when they weep, he hears. He made for them rulers even from the egg, leaders to lift the load from the back of the weak. He made for them words of power as weapons to ward off the blow of evil events, guarding them by day and by night. He has slain the traitors among them as a man strikes his son for the sake of his brother. For God knows every name. We give thanks to those words from Katie. Obviously a very, very wise man. He has other passages that are just as illuminating, just as informative and insightful. And the Hosea, of course, one of our sacred books. We're all encouraged to read the Hosea, to study it, to be familiar with it. And now, somewhere in your vicinity should be a black binder, and on page 15 of that black binder is the Wose Community Litany of Sacrifice in Guzo Saba. And if you find that page, and if everyone could please stand. And let us read together. Save us, O Holy One, by your name. Vindicate us by your might. Hear my prayer, divine protector. Listen to the words of my mouth. How can we repay the Holy One for the gifts that have been given to us? We will lift up the cup of salvation and call upon the God of our ancestors. We will fulfill our vows to our Creator in the presence of all our people. Gladly we bring our sacrifices to you. We will praise your name, O Amen-Ra, for it is good. Umoja, unity. We shall strive to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race.
Self-determination. We shall find, name, create, and speak for ourselves.
Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We shall build and maintain our community together. Our brothers and sisters' problems shall be ours to solve together.
Cooperative economics. Together we shall build and maintain our own businesses, and together profit from them.
Nia, purpose. We shall make our collective vocation the building and development of our community and the restoration of our people to our traditional greatness.
Kumuma, creativity. We shall do as much as we can in any way we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it.
Together, Imani, faith. We shall believe with all our hearts in our Creator, our people, and the righteousness and victory of our struggles. Amen-Ra. The candles of the Nguzo Saba are burning brightly in the altar. Kneeling pads have been laid at the front for those that may wish to come forward. Others, you may assume a comfortable position at your chair, and I'll take a few moments to bless these sacrifices. Holy One, again, we come ever grateful and ever thankful for our lives. We thank you for raising us up this morning. We thank you for another day, another opportunity to learn, to clear away the fog of life, to worship amongst like-minded brothers and sisters. We thank you, Holy One, for this work. It is not an easy work, and we thank you for the workers. We thank you for the sacrifices that have been given today. We ask, O Holy One, that you help us to increase those sacrifices, that we may go forward with our work in a more forceful and a more positive way. We ask that you be with us, that you continue to inspire us, to encourage us, to support us, that we do not become weary, to lift us up, O Holy One, through the righteous teachings of our ancestors, through the righteous victory that they have achieved in the struggle just to be African and to be human. We ask, O Holy One, that you give us the strength, that you give us that energy, that insight that allowed our ancestors to push back, to stand firm, to create, and to build, and to have a vision. We ask, though, that same energy, O Holy One, to come and to be with us today, that we may be a shining light for our people here in this land. We ask, O Holy One, that you bless the sick and the hungry and all the members of the Wose community that are traveling abroad. We ask that you grant them safety, blessings, and return them safe and sound to this Wose family again. Bless all those who work and struggle in the work of truth, justice, and righteousness. Be with us, O Holy One, throughout the remainder of this day. Grant blessings and protection and the gift of help. And allow us to come again and reunite to this place called Wose. Bless our young people as they struggle to find their feet and to find a path in which to establish themselves. Allow Wose to be a part of that journey, that they can come and they can walk with us for a period of time or for however long that they feel the need. We know that there are great difficulties among our young people as well as the old, but our future rests with the youth. And we ask for blessings, we ask for mercy upon them this day, this time. We ask for blessings upon the members of our elder community that have labored in this work for years and years, and perhaps at some point their bodies have grown weary and they've taken a seat. But we want to remember their work, we want to remember their sacrifices, that it was not in vain, and we want to pray and wish for them a safe journey when they cross the threshold of death, that they not be afraid, that they move forward with victory. These and blessings we ask in the name of wonderful and sacrificing ancestors that left behind so much for us to study and to build on, that we may find our path a little easier. And in the name of the one God who called forth life through our ancestors, the African, Ashe. Amen.
Come on, please, more as we stand. We join hands. Close out.
That's a naked.
Wow. Come on, tell me, come on up. And naked.
Hear my prayer, Lord, I come to thee. Amen.
Come on, y'all.
Help us walk the sacred way with all that we've got. Amen. Rock spirit in me. Hear my prayer, Lord, I come to thee.
All right. Before we close out, since you all walked in the door, you have to introduce your family. It's good to see you.
All right.
So it makes sense. And my husband Kofi. And my son Kayam Heru.
Kayam. Who is it? It was my birthday. This is Aquia. This is my daughter, oldest daughter, my son-in-law, my grandson, my granddaughter, and the newest grandson is in there right there. So, you know, it's all good. Yes, indeedy.
Wait, who is these? Good to see you all.
Hey, it was, yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. All right. So as we close out, welcome, and you all are just in time to join us for a fellowship as we close this service out. And glad for the day, and glad to see these young people coming in, and just good to see them. Make one of our own. And we heard all kinds of good things about you and your family. Welcome, brother. Is it Brother Kofi? Brother Kofi. Welcome. Yeah. All right, Kofi, you from Ghana?
No.
But the name is. We just had a presentation about Ghana. Yeah. Just
Liberation Day today.
yeah. So it's good to see everybody. Any quick announcements? Elon Day, anything? I know the graduation stuff is not until June 10th. I think it is. Any other announcements about anything that's happening this week?
Today actually is African Liberation Day.
Really?
And yes, it is.
Yesterday,
And there was a
too.
wonderful celebration at Eastside Cultural Arts Center yesterday. Yes. And there is some information. It's celebrated all over the world. And so I do have a little information back there that you can check, and you can check websites and see all the other stuff. And then today there's a Nigerian group that's playing at the Yerba Buena Center over in San Francisco. It starts at 1, so you have to eat the rush. Ends at 2:30. And then the annual carnival for San Francisco is taking place in the Mission District.
Okay.
So that goes until about 5 or 6 o'clock.
Okay. And thank you for reminding on the Carnival tip, because tomorrow in Mosswood Park, we used to call it Carrot Jam, and I'm not sure if it's being called that again, but a group of folks began just informally having an event in Mosswood Park starting around noon. Tomorrow, I think noon to 6.
Yes.
And there's usually food and vendors and music and just a good time in the park. So that's happening tomorrow. Okay.
There's no particular theme, just
It's
community.
sort of like a carnival type theme. So a lot of people who come from San Francisco who have participated in the carnival parade and all that typically come to that event. So yeah. Okay. I think that's it for the moment. Lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the roaring sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Now to the ones who are able to keep us from falling, the ones who have taught us for countless generations that we are one people, having one faith, one aim, one destiny, one God. We call that name that our ancestors have taught us for countless generations. Let us all say, Amen. You are the most beautiful people on the face of this earth. All right. Any birthdays coming this week? Anybody got a birthday coming up this week? 'Cause I know we doubled up last week.
Oh, yeah.
Well, please join us for food and fellowship. It's all here.
Perfect timing.
You're gonna be spoiled by the time you get